Now, our fifth topic is on the human digestive system, basically the digestive process, the digestion process. And when I was talking about every nutrient in our topic 3, we looked vastly at nutrition. In terms of different nutrients, we looked at the macronutrients, which are the carbohydrates, proteins, and the fats. And we also looked at the micronutrients, which are the vitamins and the minerals. I was able to give an overview of digestion of each and every of those nutrients in each and every of those subtopics. So even as we go through this, we may not take a lot of time because I already explained much concerning this. But now we just need to understand the digestive system and know how it functions, meaning of some terms here and there, and see what happens. So as an introduction, find that digestion is a multi-stage process in the digestive system, starting from ingestion of food. So ingestion usually involves some type of mechanical and chemical processing, and digestion is separated into 4 steps, which are the ingestion, mechanical and chemical breakdown, absorption, and egestion or excretion. So when you talk about ingestion, we mean placing food into the mouth, like entry of food into the digestive system. Then mechanical and chemical breakdown is the mastication or the chewing and the mixing of the resulting bolus with water, acids, bile, enzymes in the stomach, and to break down complex molecule into simple structures. About absorption, this is the absorption of nutrients from the digestive system to the circulatory and lymphatic capillaries through osmosis, active transport, and also diffusion, whereby the nutrients get into the muscles, the blood system, into other parts of the body. And then excretion is whereby there is removal of undigested materials from the digestive tract through defecation. So you find that with the digestive system, it provides 2 major functions, digestion and absorption. So carbohydrates and fats, proteins, and are digested and absorbed as sugar, fatty acids, and also amino acids, respectively. And not all components of food are digested. Vitamins, minerals, and water can be absorbed into the body without digestion, and some substances such as components of fiber cannot be digested by the humans, and so they are excreted without being absorbed. So these unabsorbed substances pass through the digestive tract and out in the feces. So what are objectives for this day? That we need, by the end of this topic, we should be able to understand or explain the meaning of terms like what I've already mentioned: ingestion, mastication or mechanical and chemical breakdowns, absorption, egestion. Should be able to explain what digestion means to you. Should be able to explain a few things that we shall learn as we proceed. You should also be able to explain the digestion process. You should be able to discuss or describe the digestive system and such like. Also, you should be able to name organs involved in the digestion and absorption of food, list mechanisms by which nutrients are absorbed, and also organs involved in the elimination of waste products from the body. Now, underlying the process is muscle movement throughout the system, through the swallowing and peristalsis. So each step in digestion requires energy and thus imposes an overhead charge on the energy made available from absorbed substances. So differences in that overhead costs are important influences on lifestyle, behavior, and even physical structures. And examples may be seen in humans who differ considerably from hominids, that is lack of hair, smaller jaws and musculature, different definition, length of intestines, cooking, etc. So the major part of the digestive system or digestion takes place in the small intestines, and the large intestines primarily serve as a site of fermentation of the indigestible matters by the gut bacteria, and also for resorption of water from digester before excretion. Preparation of digestion begins with the sephatic phase, in which saliva is produced in the mouth and digestive enzymes are produced in the stomach. Mechanical and chemical digestion usually begin in the mouth, where food is chewed and mixed with the saliva to begin the enzymatic processing of starches. So the stomach continues to break down food mechanically and mixing. Yeah. And with this, you find that with both acids and enzymes, so absorption occurs in the stomach and gastrointestinal tract, and the process finishes with defecation. So there's the oral cavity or the buccal cavity or the mouth where the digestion begins, where the mastication is likely to happen because of the teeth present in the mouth. So as you put food in the mouth, the glucose load or the food that you ingest, you will chew, then it will go down through the esophagus. Yeah. After you swallow the pharynx, in the throat, the food will go down through the esophagus or the food, then eventually into the stomach, where we also have other helping organs that help digestion, like the liver, the gallbladder. We have the duodenum, we have the pancreas that produces the pancreatic juices. We do have the small intestines, and we do have the colon. So with that, again, towards the end, we have the cecum or the rectum, and then eventually we do have the anus. So it's good, get acquainted with the digestive system. You can get the photo that is within our notes. You can also get other better photos maybe on the internet. They should be able to speak to you, same concept on digestion, and you should be able to go. So you find that upper and lower human gastrointestinal tract, the whole digestive system is around 9 meters long. And in a healthy human adult, this process can take between 25 and 72 hours. Again, you find that food digestion physiology varies between individuals and upon other factors such as the characteristics of the food and size of the meal. We do have the parts of the digestive system, and we have the phases of the gastric secretion, whereby you can be able to see that once we ingest food, you'll find that the juices are secreted into the stomach, especially the HCl, which is present in the stomach, that is able to digest the proteins, as I had already alluded to that when we were doing the proteins. So in the oral cavity, basically, we do have the salivary amylase break down the sugars, especially the maltose or the glucose that is present in the foods. And over time, that food will be used in the system. So swallowing transports the chewed food into the esophagus, passing through the oropharynx, yeah, and hypopharynx. And the mechanism for swallowing is coordinated by the swallowing center in the medulla oblongata and pons, and the reflex is initiated by touch receptors in the pharynx as the bolus of food is pushed to the back of the mouth. So in the pharynx, you find that it is the part of the neck and situated immediately behind the mouth, and nasal cavity and cranial or superior to the esophagus. So it is the part of the digestive system, and it's also part of the respiratory system. And because both food and air passes through the pharynx, a flap of connective tissue, that is the epiglottis, closes over the trachea when food is swallowed to prevent choking or asphyxiation. Maybe someone choking because absence of air, oxygen. So the oropharynx is that part of the pharynx which lies behind the oral cavity and is lined by stratified squamous epithelium, and the nasopharynx, lies behind the nasal cavity, and like the nasal passages is lined with ciliated columnar pseudo-stratified epithelium. So like the oropharynx above, the hypopharynx, that is laryngopharynx, serves as a passageway for food and air and is lined with a stratified squamous epithelium, and it lies inferior to the upright epiglottis and extends to the larynx, where the respiratory and digestive pathways diverge at the point the laryngopharynx is continuous with the esophagus. During swallowing, you'll find that food has the right of way and air passage temporarily stops when you swallow food. The esophagus or the food pipe. The esophagus is a narrow muscular tube about 20 to 30 centimeters long, which starts at the pharynx at the back of the mouth, passes through the thoracic diaphragm, and ends up at the cardiac orifice of the stomach. And the wall of the esophagus is made up of two layers of smooth overlong muscles, which form a continuous layer from the esophagus to the colon and contract slowly, descending rings, and while the outer layer is arranged longitudinally. So with this, the chewed food is pushed down the esophagus to the stomach through peristaltic contractions of these muscles, and it takes only about 7 seconds for food to pass through the esophagus, and now digestion takes place. Then the stomach is like a small J-shaped pouch with walls made of thick elastic muscles with stores which stores and helps break down food. So food which has been reduced to very small particles is more likely to be fully digested in the small intestine, and stomach churning has the effect of assisting the physical disassembly that began in the mouth. So you find that food enters the stomach through the cardiac orifice, where it is further broken apart and thoroughly mixed with gastric acid, pepsin, and other digestive um, enzymes to break down proteins. And the enzymes in the stomach also have an optimum, meaning that they work at a specific pH and temperature better than any others. So the acid itself does not break down food molecules, rather it provides an optimum pH for the reaction of the enzyme pepsin and kills many microorganisms that are ingested the food. It can also denature proteins, and this is the process of reducing peptide bonds and disrupting salt bridges, which in turn causes a loss of secondary, tertiary, or quaternary protein structure. So overall, you'll find that the churning of food will be done in the stomach, and any food that have been broken down, the smaller pieces will go to the intestines and they will be absorbed. So we usually have the serous membrane, and have also the submucosa, which is present in the stomach. In the small intestines, you find that after being processed in the stomach, food is passed to a small intestine by the pyloric sphincter, and the majority of digestion and absorption occurs here after the milky chyme enters the duodenum, and he functions with 3 different lids. So we usually have bile, which emulsifies fats to allow absorption, which releases the chyme, and also is used to excrete waste products such as bile and bile acids. Bile is produced by the liver and then stored in the gallbladder. So the bile in the gallbladder is much more concentrated. And then we have another juice called pancreatic juice made by the pancreas. We have the intestinal enzymes of the alkaline mucosal membranes. So the enzymes include maltase, lactase, and sucrase, all three of which process only the sugars, that is trypsin and chymotrypsin. Okay, then we do have the large intestines. After the food has been passed through the small intestine, the food enters the large intestine, and within its digestion is retained long enough to allow fermentation due to the action of gut bacteria, which breaks down some of the substances which remain after processing in the small intestine. So some of the breakdown products are absorbed. In humans, we find that these include most complex saccharides, that is, that most 3 disaccharides are digestible in the humans. And in addition, in many vertebrates, the large intestine reabsorbed. In a few, with desert lifestyles, this reabsorption makes continued existence possible. About fat digestion, we find that the presence of fat in the small intestine produces hormones which stimulate the release of lipids from the pancreas, largely to the liver for further processing or to fat tissue for storage. So we do have the digestive hormones that have been indicated even in our diagrams. You can check through. And basically with digestion significance of pH, it will help especially to digest the proteins so that they can be utilized in the system in a better way. So there are several definitions of terms, like we do have saliva, and it's just a fluid produced by salivary glands in the mouth, and it contains lubricants, enzymes, and other substances that help to break down food or digest food. Speed up. Remember, enzymes do speed up processes. So even in digestion, they help to either speed up or slow down. So mucus, the thick fluid secreted by glands in the body and acts as a lubricant and a means of protection for cells. We do have sphincters. I've mentioned about that. It regulates the passage of materials from one part to the next. Ni kama law, kama ni mlango wa vitu kupita, yo. Then we have heartburn and ulcers. It's caused by high acid in the stomach. We also have bicarbonate ions from pancreas neutralize the chyme before it moves to the small intestine. Then we have peristalsis, and this one we said is the food, whereby food is propelled through the gastrointestinal tract by peristalsis, a wave of a muscle action. Stomach wall is very muscular to facilitate grinding and mixing action. So with this one, find that food is processed well. Then we do have enzymes of digestion. Most digestive enzymes are made by the pancreas and small intestines. and few in the mouth and the stomach. Sorry. So about fat digestion, I think what we've mentioned majorly is about bile that is secreted by the liver and stored in the gallbladder, and once it is released, it's able to break down the fats and make them be useful. And once you have fatty acids, any excesses are stored in the body. So in the stomach, lipase needs an acid media, that is gastric lipase. Then small intestines, pancreatic lipase. Cholecystokinin, that is a hormone that stimulates the enzyme to release from the pancreas, and bile from the bladder. Then bile emulsifies fats to form water soluble micelles, which can be digested by lipases. And gastric inhibitory peptide, that is GIP, is a hormone that controls the emptying of the stomach. We do have carbohydrate digestion. As a summary, maybe as I wind up, I already mentioned that again. Digestion of carbohydrates begins in the mouth. We have the saliva. Amylase breaks down starch, small sugar units, maltose. And amylase does not work in acid environments. So in the small intestines, amylase, monosaccharides, and disaccharides, we do have sucrose, maltose, lactose, that is the disaccharides, and also have the glucose, fructose, and galactose that are broken down. Then about its absorption, small intestine site for most digestion and absorption of nutrients. That is the wall of the intestine whereby it is folded. It has finger-like projection, villi, absorptive tails. That is, each has a brush border. That is microvilli, and also these folds, fingers, and indentations in the small intestine increase the surface area for digestion to take place. So that is how the small intestines are adapted for digestion in the human body. About protein digestion, usually we do have the pepsin and peptones, and gastric is a hormone that stimulates enzyme and acid secretion in the stomach. So in the small intestines, we do have the chyme, that's a mixture of stomach secretions and partially digested food that is neutralized by the carbonate ions. And the secretion, we do have a hormone that causes bicarbonate ions to be released by the pancreas. And we do have the passive and active absorption that takes place within the small intestines. Both the lymphatic system, basically, it carries fat soluble nutrients, that is long chain fatty acids and fat soluble vitamins B and K. Also, large intestines is part of the lymphatic system. Small intestine is 85% to 90% of water absorbed. Then large intestine, some water, potassium and sodium, and bacteria, vitamin K and biotin. So maybe in a way of revision, you find that it's important that we find a way to list the organs involved in the digestive system and explain how they do function, the functions of the liver in the digestive system, products of digestion are transported by the lymphatic system, and you need to explain each one of them, name them, and what is the form of energy used by the cells. So in summary, we've just looked at the digestion process, the process by which food is broken down into small units and then utilized in the body, small enough to be absorbed. So absorption is the process by which nutrients are put into the body and utilized by the cells. So that is it for today. I do want to hope that there's something you've picked. Engage more, get through the notes. Let me know in our class. Have a blessed time.